Hello and welcome everyone to today's commentated card fight. This is coming from the first TriCriTS VGCS, which took place a couple weeks back now, and this is actually the top 8 of said VGCS, and that tournament was hosted by Team TriCriTS, and I believe that my friend Ansuerer, which was actually one of the main people organizing it, and thanks to him, I'm able to deliver this commentary to you as he allowed me to use the footage from the tournament. So, in terms of context for this tournament, or this video really, this is the top 8, and as we can see it's a fight between Royal Paladin and Spike Brothers, with the Royal Paladin user being Sensui, who is from Team the Losers 3rd. And so far his results as the player from the team, he's been sort of mixed. He had a win against Kagero as well as Oracle Think Tank, but he also had a loss against another Oracle Think Tank player and also Tachikaze, which is quite interesting because I think the Tachikaze matchup for Royal Paladin is a bit hard, so I think it also depends who goes first in that regard, but it's also quite impressive. However, on the other side, we do have Jack from Team Not Cancelled, and he currently is undefeated in the tournament. He beat both Royals and Oracle Think Tank and Nova Grappler as well as Kagero. So, showing the true strength of Spike Brothers, I think this will be a very interesting match because we'll get to see some of the nitpicky things with the deck that I wasn't able to show in the deck previews. So, we see Sensui got the first turn and he went into the Anil, and Jack goes into Gyro Slinger, does not use the Gyro Slinger's skill and checks a crit. So I think it was actually good that he didn't use the Gyro Slinger's effect, because that way he didn't lose a card from hand to convert the critical trigger onto the field, and actually worked out because he got the crit onto his opponent. So Sensui goes into the Blaster Blade, calls the Allen, calls another Allen off of that, and then uses that second Allen to call a Pongal, and then because because it was cold, he's able to draw an extra card and get the Soul Charge from the Pongal skill, which does seem to be a Blaster Blade as well. This is a very aggressive start from Sensui, and it really shows how battles flow here in Standard. So he does get the first hit off with the Allen. He goes with the Blaster Blade, doesn't have the crit boost, but this should be a no pass. He gets the Akane, which he could use next turn if he wants to, and this is another Allen hitting for, if I'm not mistaken, 19k, which is definitely hitting for a magic number, but with a 15k guard, he's able to block it off. We go back to Jack's turn, and here he goes into the Spike Bouncer, able to Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 to be able to check the top 2 cards of his deck, call one of them, and then the other one goes to the bottom of the deck. He gets the Wonder Boy off, which is really big because he guarded with 2 crits last turn. He's able to return one of them because Wonder Boy does state that when you call him, you return a non-grade 1 card from your drop zone to your deck. Now he calls down the Braki, who gets the plus 10k boost from being called, and this is a very aggressive field. And normally the Wonder Boy should also have an extra 5k from being called, but we can see that Sensui gets the critical trigger in return, thus having a more beefy Vanguard, but he's able to get rid of one of the Allens and attack the Vanguard with his Braki because it does have the 10k power on it, but Sensui just guards that with a regular 5k Akane. So, here we see Sensui is now on Alfred. He puts the force marker on his right front row circle, thus being the Allen that he has there for now. He uses the Alfred skill to call out the Blaster Blade. Won't be able to use the Blaster Blade skill as he doesn't have any face-up counterblast, but slowly thinning the deck, setting up attackers, and doing the thing that Royal Paladin does best, which is dishing out a bunch of pressure from very early on while thinning their deck and overall just staying very consistent. But I think in this match, Spikes are even better at thinning the deck, so we're going to see how Jack manages to pilot it to be able to thin out the deck to the point that he's able to get it to a sweet spot before his opponents. So here we can see that Jack is really debating on how he wants to guard this Blaster Blade. He drops the Wonder Boy, so the 10k guard will be enough. Here he attacks with the Alfred, and Jack lets it pass. He gets the crit, hitting for 2 damage, gets the heal, which he can't use, but he can give the power into one of his units. And then he attacks with the Allen, which doesn't have the power boost from last turn, so this will be just a 26. Oh no, it'll be a 36 from the trigger as well. So this is going to be a pretty big guard for Jack, or I think it should be a 20k guard normally because he also got a trigger himself, otherwise he'll have to take it and, you know, go up to 4 damage. So this is a bit of a debatable situation because we haven't seen Jack check any heals yet, so it's basically he has to drop a 15k guard and intercept, or he has to take it. So instead he's gonna drop the 15k guard. I think that was actually 25 because I think that was another Gyro Slinger if I'm not mistaken, but nevertheless, he did manage to guard it. His hand isn't too big, but this is where Spike Brothers starts to shine, which is now with the General Siegfried. So he goes into the AC unit of the deck. He's able to set up a force marker on one of his units, so let's see where he chooses to put it. He's still debating on it, and, you know, I think on my side I would call it to one of the rearguard circles, probably the one that Wonder Boy is on, because that way you're able to still recycle the Wonder Boy, maybe call something else out, boost it up, and then recycle the Brachy as well at the start of main phase, and be able to have a consistent attacker on both sides of the field as well as the Vanguard. So we can see he's doing some calculations. One of the really strong parts of Siegfried's skill is that it's not once per turn. Therefore, because he has 2 open counterblasts, if I'm not mistaken, oh, he's putting it under the Brachy. That is quite interesting. So, as I was saying, because Jack does have 2 open counterblasts, he could potentially use Siegfried's skill more than once, so we'll see what he decides to do. His soul is quite empty, he only has 2 at the moment, as he had to soul blast 1 for the Spike Bouncer effect earlier. Now we go into the start of main phase, he's going to use Wonder Boy to search out another copy of Wonder Boy, and once that Wonder Boy is called, he'll be able to recycle a non-grade 1 unit from his drop zone, put it back into the deck, and also boost up his own power. So this really shows one of the very consistent parts of Spike Brothers, and what sets them apart as one of the really threatening clans right now in Standard. And I think a lot of clans have their own strengths and weaknesses, but I think Spike Brothers just has this very consistent playstyle where you're thinning your deck consistently, you're able to set up just strong numbers and a good field consistently as well. And now we can see put down, I think it was the other trigger that he guarded with the Wonder Boy, so that is a good choice. So now he's going to use the general Siegfried skill. I think he's checking his remaining drop zone, but I think if he uses the Siegfried skill, that would be a good choice, because then he can set up the Wonder Boy. So he will use the skill to put not the Wonder Boy, the Brachy into the soul to call out another copy. So now this new Brachy will receive a 10k power bonus from the Siegfried. The Siegfried will receive it himself as well. And on top of that, Brachy's on-call skill will be triggered, which means that he'll get another plus 10k power boost from being called. And if that's not enough, he also gets the force marker. So we're looking at a 40k attack on its own, which is definitely quite frightening, especially this early into the game. So we can see that Jack's hand isn't very threatening at the moment. He only has 3 cards in hand, so it's going to really depend on how he proceeds through this match. I think if he could draw into one of his Gary Gannons, that would help a lot, because that way he could pressure for some on-hit draw pressure, and that would help his hand as well as depleting his opponents. But we'll see what he decides to do. For now, he's debating on how he wants to attack. He kept the Wonder Boy in the front because he can target down the Allen, because the Wonder Boy normally should have 13k power because it was called at the start of main phase with its own skill. He does have the Gary Gannon. That is very good, because now he's able to threaten his opponent with that Brachy being a huge attack. It's going to turn into one of those you take this or you perfect guard it kind of situations. And you know, he also has the Vanguard to worry about, because this is attacking for 23k on its own, and on top of that it also does have the on-hit pressure to Soul Blast 2 to stand the unit. So we can see that he guarded with a 25k shield, thus making that a 2 to pass, because he goes up to 38, so that way he doesn't need 2 triggers. He does stack both on the Vanguard, and that is very big, because by stack he took the risk with the draw. He took the risk to stack it all on the Vanguard to get that on-hit pressure with Siegfried. That was honestly not expected. I didn't actually notice that he was stacking on the Vanguard. I just assumed it was the Brachy, but he actually went for it. That was really exciting. So he gets the on-hit pressure to stand the Brachy to still get another attack, to stand the Wonder Boy to get another attack. He still goes in with the Brachy to try to pressure for 1 more damage, but he gets the perfect guard. So Sensui, sitting at a 5 damage if I'm not mistaken, gets the force on the left, calls the Akane. This is a very fast level of play. You can see that all players kind of got set off by the, just by that kind of scary, all in, give it everything to the Vanguard, because, other clans, they can all in and sure you'll get the hit, but with Siegfried it's even more threatening, because that on-hit pressure is huge. And he did ride into the Soul Saver and used its skill to Soul Blast 5 and give, up to 6 of his units a plus 15k boost. Now he attacks with a Soul Saver, giving it the extra soul charge from his on-attack skill, potentially being able to use the Soul Saver skill again next turn, but this is going to be a very threatening turn for Jack, because these are big numbers coming at him. Sensui is also at his last straws, I think, because right now he's on high damage counts. and he can't really afford to do much else. He gets the crit, which is really big here for extra pressure. He gets a double crit. Now, the way that he distributes this will be very important, because depending on how he distributes it, it might be impossible for Jack to guard everything consistently, or he'll have to take one of the attacks at least, which technically is a good thing, because I believe he split the crits if I'm not mistaken. At least I think so. I wasn't too sure because their hands were moving quite fast. But if that is the case, then Sensui, I think he should be able to, I don't have the pressure to finish the game, but I believe that, yes, they are making sure. Okay, he did split up the crits, so this one is hitting for 2 damage, which is fine for Jack, because even if he goes up to 5, that's just more combos he can do, and he had the second Perfect Guard. Those were the last cards in his hand. So that is definitely quite scary, but Jack was quite lucky to have both Perfect Guards there, but we did know about one of them from last turn because he did drive check them very successfully, so I think that does show that, you know, Sensui also knew about that Perfect Guard. So now, going into this turn, there's going to be a lot of skills going off. You have the Braki going off, you have the Wonder Boy going off, you also have Siegfried that can potentially thin the deck more, you can potentially call out more, you know, another Gary Gannon to just fill up the soul, to thin the deck, and all those things, you know, all the good things that Spike Brothers does in Standard. So we're seeing a very powerful play here. I think last turn was honestly very game defining for Jack, because here it was just such a big pressure power turn, because, you know, he had already strong attacks going towards Sensui, but that risk that he took with the double trigger definitely did turn the tides of the game, because, you know, I think if he would have just given everything to the rear guard, we saw that Sensui had the perfect guard for the other attack, so that 2-to-pass was quite risky. But I think for Spike Brothers players, it does even make sense to go all in sometimes if, you know, the odds are in your favor, if you count your drop zone and see there aren't many triggers. I think there's definitely a reason to go all in, just because that on-hit skill to Soul Blast to instant something is such big pressure. So he's using the secret skill here for the Gary Gannon to search out another copy. The main function of using that skill is just to thin the deck, really, and, you know, it does make sense why he uses that. He did get off the Wonder Boys. He also searched out the Braki to the back row, which is also quite nice. So I think definitely there's a lot of pressure here. And he's using the Siegfried skill twice already to search out a second Gary Gannon. And this shows the strength of Siegfried not being once per turn. So you can actually do this kind of play where you use the same skill on the same unit twice to just get rid of any other copies of that unit from your deck. That way you're thinning your deck to just be as many triggers as possible, and you're able to get those sort of, you know, all-in moments a lot more consistently, because at that point it just makes sense to all-in because most of your deck is triggers anyway. So that's really how the deck functions, and it's a very strong part of it. But Royals still have the ultimate consistency in the deck, but we can see that in the end, Sensui can't afford to guard and he has to take the last damage. So that was the top 8 match between Sensui and Jack, and Team the Losers third and Team Not Cancelled. But unfortunately, the Team Not Cancelled actually did lose this one, and it was just Jack that won his match. So on that note, thank you very much for watching this fight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, don't forget to click the bell button, as well as check out the social medias in the description, and join the Discord channel if you haven't already. But on that note, that's gonna be it for me today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.